Hello, I just did the little 53 subscriber celebration video and just thought, oh my god, I wanted to talk about Chime by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, which I talked about on the German podcast in details with a great human called Daniel. And but we did it in German, so why not recap a little bit of what we said here in English. So some of these ideas are from Daniel, not from me, but I will just steal them and present them as if it's mine. No. I will do that. But Chime by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. One of his 3 movies this year. It's a relatively short movie, just 45 minutes, with Mutsu Yoshioka, who you might have seen in Cloud, the other one of the other big Kiyoshi Kurosawa movies. And then we have some other cast members that I will not go into detail here. It's not as important. I always feel like people skip that part anyway, or they just stop the video when I start talking about the cast. So if you want to know who's in this movie, just check it. Anyway, so this movie has a little bit funny story. I think I talked about it in a different video. It was produced by a company called Roadstead, and they fell on the nose a little bit, I would say, because they basically made this an NFT. So they wanted to sell a limited number of copies digitally, and then they wanted these people to resell and rent out those digital copies, and they had like 999 copies to sell. Around 300 sold copies. The counter just disappeared, so I guess I didn't sell many more. And instead, the counter for people who have watched this movie went up a few thousand. Now it's at 21,000 on Letterboxd only. So there must be way more people who have watched this movie. And that started to happen while, like, in between selling the movie but not enabling people to rent it out or resell it. So there was like 1 week or 2 weeks, like a time window where that happened, and suddenly the view count on Letterboxd went up, and I guess everyone watched it totally legally and not through strange ways on the internet. Anyway, it's a fantastic movie. Kiyoshi Kurosawa was asked why he did this, and he was like, I've done short movies, I've done full feature films, I've never done a 45-minute movie, so I was interested in doing this. And he did it, and after this debacle, the movie had a common cinema release in Japan, and I hope they made enough money to get it back. But I guess it wasn't that expensive. It's short. It's a pretty small movie. It looks very good. It has a really, really nice look. Probably the best looking among these 3 movies that he did this year. The third one was Serpent's Path, which I need to see again and compare to the old one. That will be interesting. We will do that someday. Anyway, this movie is about a chef who is currently teaching cooking, and he's a little bit let's say very confident, and he's applying for a job in a restaurant. And so we have a little bit of his daily life. We see him at home with his family, all normal, but somehow in general the communication between the people is a little bit odd. For example, when he has dinner with his family, he asks his son, like, whether or not he's still in this club at school, and the son is, yeah. So he says, oh, don't overdo it, and the son just starts to laugh maniacally, and the mother just stands up and grabs some bags full of cans to throw them away or whatever. It's a really, really weird family dynamic, and it's already like why? What's going on here? Something's off. And in the cooking school, there's this one student who's just weird and complaining. And someday he's like, half of my brain got removed and someone put a machine in there, and I hear this chime all the time. And let me show you if you don't believe me. And he just sticks a knife into his head, and that's it for him. And yeah, more and more people go crazy. And I guess, to talk a little bit more spoiler free about this movie, even though spoiling this movie doesn't really change much. It's a really creepy movie. There's not much going on, but because these horrible scenes where people just freak out start happening, and we don't really know why. It's a really weird, disgusting atmosphere, and it just gets worse and worse. And at some point, this insanity gets transferred into the visual aspects of the movies, and everything becomes very grainy or noisy. It's more like digital noise and grain, and all these things, and it's really amazing. We have some very interesting representation of ghosts. Like Kiyoshi Kurosawa does very cute little camera tricks to make it even stranger. Like one of the students at his school disappears or dies maybe, and he comes in, and one of the other students says, "Oh, she's inside waiting for you." And so he goes inside, and we see her at the end of the room looking into the camera, and he's like, "Oh, she's over there." And he comes in and he looks, and then the camera tilts down, and we see an empty chair, so there's nobody there. But it doesn't go just straight down, it does a little to the side, and just this tiny strange camera move makes the whole scene even weirder and scarier and stranger. And it's just like small details that work so well that Kurosawa does. He's not a very flashy, showy director, which maybe might sometimes be, or which sometimes probably makes his movies less memorable. Like, there are plenty of his movies that I watched and I don't really remember all that much, but when I rewatch them, I'm like, holy cow, this is amazing. Why didn't you remember this? There's quite a lot of that, and I guess you would have to rewatch them a couple of times to really notice all the tiny things. And yes, that's really great here and makes it very interesting. And I think because of this horror coming more from the atmosphere and stuff that we don't understand, this is probably closer to the movies that most people associate with Kurosawa, even though like stuff like Pulse or A Cure, it's not his most common type of movie, I would say, but it's the stuff that people know him for. So I guess this one connects the most easily with his audience, or with the audience in general. So yeah, I understand why this, and yeah, the way it got distributed and people just ignored the official distribution helped a lot to get some attention and make people watch it. It's if you compare the Letterboxd scores, this one has the highest score, like 3.7, and I think that's the reason. It's short, it's easy to watch, it's uncomfortable, it looks great, the atmosphere is fantastic, and there's one funny thing that we discovered, or that we discussed in the podcast, which connects this one perfectly to Cloud, is the aspect of like machines and metal. For example, here this guy says, oh, he has this machine in his brain, or when the protagonist has a little argument with his son, the son goes back into his room and wears headphones, probably looks at some screen, and he has this metal thing that he moves. So, like, kind of finding comfort in artificial metallic things, and in cloud it's more like this digital online world where people find peace while terrorizing each other. Like, for example, in Cloud, the protagonist, if he can't sleep, he just keeps watching at his screen, looking at his selling numbers, or what products he sold, and feels safe and comfortable in that case. So there is kind of a common or shared theme here between these two movies, which is really interesting. And it's just a really, really nasty little film that I really enjoyed watching. And it's crazy how Kiyoshi Kurosawa, I think he did his last movie in 2020, I guess. That was Wife of a Spy, which I should rewatch as well. I just saw it in cinemas, and I think at the time my Japanese watch was a good bit worse than it's now. It's still not amazing, but if I would watch it now, I probably understand more, and probably now I can get some subtitles for it. But that was 2020, by the way, co-written by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. So that was 2020, and then nothing until this year, and suddenly 3 movies. And I just saw, like, Kurosawa is like 69 years old, so wow, good job, nice. I didn't really expect that. I never checked its age, well, it makes sense. But at that age, just like shooting 3 movies a year is a thing, and all are great. So this one is just the really, really fun little nasty one that sticks out a little bit more. It goes very much into this little bit Tsukamoto-esque, the modern world with its concrete and metal and stuff, like taking people away from their humanity and turning them into basically machines. So maybe a little bit spoiler zone at the end. For example, there's this conversation where the protagonist talks to one of his students, or he gives like a solo lesson, and he's like showing her how to prepare a chicken, and he's just twisting around the legs, and it's really disgusting to look at. And she freaks out. She's like, what is this thing even? Like, if we had started here from it being alive, it would make sense somehow, but there's just a squishy, wobbly, dead thing that doesn't even resemble a living thing anymore. And she's completely disgusted by this thing that's not a real thing and not a real living thing, and it just ugh. And this conversation freaks him so out that he just grabs a knife and kills her as mechanically as he just tore this chicken apart. So like, there's a stress situation, and he just goes into mechanical killing mode. And then there's another scene where he's at this job interview in a restaurant, and he's just talking about himself, praising himself, not talking about the restaurant. So they're like, maybe you should just keep teaching instead of working at our restaurant, because you don't care about our restaurant. And he just accepts it, and suddenly in the background people start killing each other and all these things. it's all completely cold. It's all completely emotionless. Same when he gets told all of this, like, hey, you should just keep teaching instead of getting the job. He doesn't react that strong. He's just standing there like, oh yes, I will do that. Like, all the people here lose every bit of humanity throughout the movie, and he just keeps going crazier and crazier, without even like explaining what's going on. You can guess that it must be like this society and people losing their humanity, or maybe you've got a better take, but there's not much more to get a real explanation. They never tell you this is what's going on. There never ghosts shown, like this ghost that may or may not have been there was this student that he killed and he buried her in the woods. And that's why he was a bit like, oh my god, how does it happen that she's here and she's not here? Maybe she's there, we don't know. So nothing gets really explained. They suggest that he might kill his family. Same, his wife. What does his wife do with all these cans? Where do the cans even come from? Like, seemingly every day she has like 2 or 3 big bags full of empty cans. What's going on there? And she just throws them away for no reason. Completely mechanical and completely useless. What's the point? So, yeah, that's the thing that's makes this movie so scary, like people not acting as people, which is kind of a concept that he explained he got from the Hammer movie The Gorgon, where it was applied to the portrayal of ghosts, where he said like a ghost is much scarier if it just like a person standing there and not behaving like a human would, and that makes it looks like a human but doesn't behave like a human, and that what he felt like makes ghosts in movies scary. And he took that a little further in Journey to the Shore, if I remember correctly, where you sometimes don't even know who is a ghost and who is a human. And if we apply this to this, everybody could be a ghost. Maybe humanity is already gone. No idea. But it would make sense in his, in this argumentation. Well, it's just the horror that like humans stop behaving like humans. They become machines in this society, or, yeah. And, so that makes them scary. And I think that is super, super interesting, and that's why this movie works so well. I guess Serpent's Pass and Cloud give you much more explanation about what's happening. It has more reason, more sense to it. You know what's going on and why, more or less. But here it's just like horror stuff happening. We don't know what's going on. We can interpret it in some ways, and that's it. And it's really cool, really great, and I liked it very, very much. So yeah, watch it if you can, and enjoy it, and watch Cloud and Serpent's Pass, and watch all Kiyoshi Kurosawa movies, because they're all great. He's probably one of the most underrated directors, even though like most people love him, especially like few movies like Cure or Pulse, but I feel like most of his movies are completely under the radar of most people. And I think it's super strange that Cloud is Japan's choice for the International Picture at the Academy Awards. Like, I mean, it's a fantastic movie. I love it. It's great. But how does that make sense to give that movie that shouts at you like capitalism is evil to go to America to the Academy Awards? I have no idea. It's crazy, but Yeah, Kiyoshi Kurosawa, one of the great directors of our time, I would say. Watch his movies, enjoy it. Keep watching this channel. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.